everybody. Hello, Seth. Can you hear
Hello,
me?
everyone.
Can I
Hi,
hear
Seth.
you? Yes, we can hear each other.
Good.
Good, good. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Great Transition. Happy to be here, seeing already some people tuning in. Tell us where you're watching from. Let us know where you're tuning in from. Hello, Puerto Rico and Spain. Yeah, I see Debbie from the US Capitol. Well,
I check it.
nearby.
Siegfried is in Germany,
Yes, we have
spoke
Shannon
slightly
from
slanted.
Toronto. Yes,
Oh, cool.
triple.
Shannon. Shannon, hey, I'm Seth from Cobb U. I saw you asked a question, I think, in Cobb Revealed 2, I think. Hi. Cool.
Cool.
And Reina from India. All
Yes,
right.
yes. All right, more people joining in. Great, great, you guys. So, if you're new here, welcome to the Great Transition. In the Great Transition, we are exploring where the world is going to where it's going and where humanity is headed. If you feel that there's this unprecedented change that the world is going through, you're in the right place. We're going to explore that through the lens of authentic Kabbalah. We're going to see how all of humanity are pieces of some collective entity that we just need to discover. We're going to see that and look into that. We're going to go beyond differences that typically put people apart from each other, like culture and religion and other differences, mentality, backgrounds. We want to see how all of humanity, bound by laws of nature, is moving forward to its next stage of evolution. That's what we're doing here. And we're looking at what the world is going through, and through this lens of authentic Kabbalah, we're trying to put an evolutionary context onto everything that's happening, give you a new and unique point of view. All right, so what are we up for? What's going on today,
Well,
Seth? What are we?
first
What's
of
going
all,
to
I just
happen
want to
here?
say that somehow we need to put on our radar somehow. I know we broadcast in a few, like I know with us live, we have a few places that people watch us from, and we
Yes.
need to figure out how to kind of put that all those powers together because there's awesome conversations kind of happening in the chats of each place, and I think if we figure out a way to bring them all together, it'll be like it'll just be a big old party. So anyway, just put it on the back burner, but it's something we need to figure out how to do because there's like three conversations going around simultaneously. So we'll figure that out. So there's can we just jump in?
Yeah, let's jump in. Speaking of
Okay. Let's
conversations.
speaking of conversations, so there's an interesting thing that's been going on at least for a year or more, whatever. We haven't spoken about it yet, and it's cancel culture, and
Hmm.
what like probably the greatest selling English children's author for little kids, Dr. Seuss. He had some books canceled. Of course,
Hmm.
the greatest selling children's author probably in the world, the author of Harry Potter. Do you know why she was canceled? She was canceled. I mean, canceled. I guess you could say. I don't know if anyone
J.K.
cancel Harry
Rowling?
Potter. Yeah. Do you know why she was canceled?
Ah, no, I
Just
actually
out of
didn't know she was canceled.
there was an
Sorry
article.
for the
It,
ignorance.
it,
Yeah, Dr.
yeah.
Seuss I heard, but yeah. Hmm.
Okay, so there was some article or something that came out and said creating a more equal post-COVID world for people who menstruate.
Hmm.
And she tweeted something like, "What's the name for people who menstruate? Was it, she like made a joke because women
Ah, okay.
menstruate, but the
Okay.
way that the article was written is, some people are now women, but they're not, transgender, so it's like a whole thing. So anyway, they don't call this
Right, right. I get it. I get
health.
it.
Okay, you get
So
it.
so she
Anyway,
got into
so not
trouble because of that.
she got into
Yeah.
trouble. So people are really sensitive to being offended, to having um their points of view, their
Mm-hmm.
feelings hurt. People are
Mm-hmm.
very offended at their feelings being hurt. And so there is a movement now, and wherever it comes from, and it's of course politically motivated and special interests behind it and all that stuff. But it's a thing now that if somebody offends me,
Hmm.
we want to cancel them. Um,
Yeah, and it's
there's
a
some very
phenomenon, and it's a phenomenon that is unique to our time. It's something that is there's several triggers for it that we can go into, but this is something that's
there was
growing very, very specifically in our time. Yeah.
so other times had their own problems, such as slavery or colonization or
Okay.
there was
Holocaust.
plenty of Holocaust. There was
Okay.
plenty of problems. There's never a
Mhm.
shortage of problems. One of our interesting problems now, because we're not those old, it's not the 1980s, it's not the 1800s.
Mhm.
We're going through a very important, special time for humanity. And this is just, it's interesting when we look at these things that are going on in the um, public, because the movement of humanity happens according to the majority. That's
Mhm.
how that's how changes happen in society. Of course, they don't start by the majority, but
Mhm.
when something shifts, it's when it hits a certain kind of critical mass, and then the 100th monkey, whatever you want to call it, it hits a certain critical mass.
Mhm.
Um, we learn about that also in the wisdom of Kabbalah, that there's like an addition, like
And then
I
a
don't know if
jump. And then a
if
leap. Yeah.
for sure I'm the oldest guy here, but if anybody knows what those old gas meters looked like, you'd have a meter or the odometer on the car before it was digital.
Mhm.
This one goes 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then the first one goes 1, and then 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,
Right.
9,
Yeah.
2. And yeah, so
Mhm.
that's how advancement happens as well. There's a lot of things happening, but you don't really see it happening until it hits a full measure, and then whoosh, it flips, right? Like a baby grows inside the womb, and then after 9 months, oh, again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
Yes.
7, 8, 9, flip.
Yeah. So
Wow,
e-
it's like a gas meter.
evolution, the
Baby in the womb is
evolution.
like a gas meter.
Yeah. Evolution has there's leaps in evolution that are
Yeah.
sort of like quantum jumps from one degree to the next, when there's a certain accumulation of quantity and new quality emerges. Yeah. Okay.
So we're talking
So
about majority.
how
So
did you
what's
get there though? How did you get there from cancel culture? What? I'm, I'm
ah
not, I'm-
um not sure.
okay.
I
So
don't
I'll,
remember. But um geez, I'm not sure.
okay, while
Will I
you figure it
remember?
out, I
Yeah.
see that Jansen Carabello here on the chat says, "Wow, guys, you're brave for this convo." Laughing out loud. So I actually want to relate to this for a second. I don't think we need bravery here. I don't think it's about bravery. I think um, we need to explore what humanity is going through, what society is going through from a broader view, from a higher view, from a bird's eye view. And that's exactly what the authentic wisdom of Kabbalah can give to us, that vantage point, that ability to look at ourselves not as villains and heroes, victims and perpetrators, wrongdoers and right doers. The whole perspective through which I'd like us to get into this topic is a higher one, is one that is more connected to nature itself. We, at the end of the day, are all bound by laws of nature. Now, if something big is happening, like this phenomenon of cancel culture, if something is being established in human society as a wide, broad phenomenon, that has to do with human evolution. That has to do with the mechanics of how we evolve. And maybe if we start delving into this angle, then we can better understand what is actually going on.
Yeah, but Jensen
So,
makes a good
yeah.
point. Have you ever
Yeah, it's of course, sure.
complimented
I,
Allie, for example, and you're like, "Wow, that looks really good," and she's like, "What? I didn't look good yesterday." Like sometimes like you
yeah.
have to um even if we could still get caught in a trap here,
Mm-hmm.
even if just by trying to talk about something from a high level,
Yeah.
we could still find ourselves trapped. So I understand what she's saying.
Okay, let's see. Let's see if we, if we put ourselves into traps, or if we can bypass them, if we even need to. Let's see. Um, I will.
I think
I what?
I think the reason I brought up the full measure thing was
Yeah,
because say
the leaps of
every gen
evolution. Yeah,
the leaps, yeah.
is
Oh boy,
because.
that's we were talking about each generation had phenomenon that were happening. This one appeared now.
Mm,
Something was stirring and
gotcha.
stirring and stirring, and then it revealed.
Right.
Speaking of just, and I'm not sure how this fits into the content of the show, but it's funny. We had a toy here. Maybe you'll figure out how this relates. We had a toy that all households grew up with. It was a potato, and
Mm-hmm.
then you with holes, like a bunch of
Yeah,
holes
yeah.
you could
We
stick
had that.
different
We
ears
had
on.
this. We had
You had
we had this here
Mr.
as
Potato
well.
Head also.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a box with a potato in it with a bunch of holes, and you could stick different shoes on it,
Hey,
different
it's this
hats on
this
it, a
potato
mustache on
figure.
it.
The potato figure. Yeah.
The potato figure, he said. It's Mr. Potato Head, he was always called.
You see how I
And
managed to say it without saying that it was a he?
so, yeah. So anyway, even Mr. Potato Head offended somebody that he was a Mister. So anyway, we can tell it's kind of an extreme thing. I think. Oh boy, what's no matter
Uh-huh.
how bad your life is, just remember there are people out there worried about the gender of a plastic potato.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay. Um okay. No, but let's what?
The fundamental thing here, I think, and I think this gets to the root of the whole thing, and let's see how all our friends are going to react to this, is that there is some kind of thought that human beings are just born like good or born finished, which is completely different than our understanding of the world. That we talked about children who were raised like feral children who were raised as dogs or raised in the wild, right? Like our understanding of the world is that there's certain qualities that a person is born with, which you really have no control over, which come from all of the generations. And maybe you got a good deck, a good hand of cards, and maybe you were not dealt a great hand of cards. And then
Mhm.
you also have the environment that you're
Yeah.
put into, and that kind of determines. And so this kind of thing where how could in 1992 when you were in college you dressed up like this, or you made a movie in 1970 and something, or this concept that everybody is supposed to be a complete finished product
Mhm.
versus the understanding that everything that doesn't appear as good, it's just not ripe yet.
Mhm.
Everything is in a process of development. And I think that if we understood, if we were educated, if kids went through a kind of education about understanding the world that we live in and understanding the process that everything is in, we wouldn't have to get so offended by these things. Oh, look how horrible those things were. Yes, that was horrible. And now we understand what to do about it and how to develop, but not constantly pointing out every evil thing. Because take anybody who's canceling or anyone who's criticizing and look through their entire text history and look through their entire Google search history and look through every argument they've ever had with their mother and everything that they've said behind closed doors. And nobody's clean. Nobody.
Mhm.
Everybody is a work in progress.
Yeah. Yeah, we are continuously evolving. Um this is a this is a difficult thing to for us to come to grips with, that we are not a finished product, that we are continuously evolving. Um, but there's also the aspect of how we are evolving, and I think that that takes us back to cancel culture. If we go back to you know what, let's ask some big questions here, so that we can take this. Cancel culture is just a uh, some phenomenon that has become prevalent and that we've put a name to in the last few years, right? Like in the last maybe even 2 years or 3 years, something very fairly new. But the forces of human evolution that are at play here, they're not new. This is an evolution in the making that is happening to us, and we are not sufficiently aware of and understanding the dynamic of it. This is what's happening here. So, the questions that we need to ask ourselves really are bigger questions, like how do 8 billion people almost on this planet, who are potentially all different from each other, how can they all be right? How can everyone, with their own opinions and views and worldviews and conceptions of the world and so on, how can everyone be right at the same time? Is that even possible? And if it is possible, then how? And I would say where? Where is that level of perception, level of human experience, level of reality, where the opposites and the differences can actually not cancel each other and yet remain different, remain unique, remain themselves, and yet complement each other into some bigger whole? Is that an option even? Is that a possibility? If we were to see that there is some process that's taking us there, that there is some sort of an evolutionary process we're all in right now that is moving there, then we'd be able to see our differences in a completely new way, under a completely new light. So I think let's talk about how does is there cancel culture in nature? Is there such a thing like cancel culture in nature? In nature, we see that there are many differences. There are many different elements in the periodic table, right? There are many different compounds. And yet what we see throughout evolution is we see that these different elements somehow find a way to come together. Take, like, you know, the bedrock of life, water. Water is a compound made of hydrogen and oxygen, right? H2O. But the unique thing is that it's not just two things coming together and building something. No, the hydrogen remains hydrogen. The oxygen remains oxygen.
I solved it
They,
while you're talking. I solved it.
yeah,
The problem is our mouths. Our mouths.
explain.
Because if hydrogen and oxygen had mouths, like damn you, you ass, no, God, you jerking you know, and eventually through lots of shouting and fighting
Yeah,
through billions of years or however many years it took for hydrogen and oxygen to form into water, and lots of wars and cursing at each other and bouncing off each other and coming back, then then they would form water. Then they could relax, and for generations to come, they could live in harmony together in this beautiful, the source of life, water, right? You could have a barren desert, nothing, but add water and it's life. But for all of the billions of years it took for water to form, they were just, if they had mouths and consciousness, they'd just be cursing
mm-hmm.
at each other and fighting and, I'm going back, no, you and that. So here's the thing.
Well, are the elements? Let's stay with this role playing situation, okay? The hydrogen and oxygen. Are they trying to cancel each other, Or are they trying to find a configuration, a
No, but
certain
we're not really
formation?
trying to cancel each other either. It just seems like that because we got big mouths. We have
Hmm.
consciousness that goes with it. I'm just saying mouths as like a just to play the game here. We also have all this developed
Expression, like you mean like
not only did our not only did our mouths developed, are also our brains developed and everything. I'm just using mouths as a
sure.
placeholder for all of this development. We're this, everything that's going on today. It's just like the hydrogen and the oxygen. It's just like the same process that happened to make organic matter out of inorganic matter.
Hmm.
It's
The,
everything is the same, except now we have mouths. That's the only problem. Now we're feeling it. This is exactly the same natural process that has always happened. I mean, since the Big Bang and since matter began developing, it's the same process, except now we have these big mouths and feelings.
okay,
Hydrogen and
so
oxygen have feelings.
okay, so how do you know? No, I'm kidding. But the okay, let's take that. Let's integrate it into this line of thought. So everything in nature is going through the same process of integration. Throughout this process of integration, differences are enhanced, are accentuated, are highlighted, and then they find a way to coexist, to complement each other, to even augment each other without canceling each other. There is no cancel culture in nature. There is a struggle, there's a battle, there are eons of terrible wars between the cooling force and the heating force that in this ball of liquids and gas that created planet Earth, and there is constant battle and struggle, if you will, between other forms of plus and minus and ebb and flow and male and female in all those levels of nature, but ultimately they don't they don't cancel
Complain
each
about it.
other out. What?
Complain about it.
Yeah, well, they okay. Let's talk about that. This whole, we have mouths, we have complaints, we have communication, we have expression, and all that. Let's talk about what's the difference. All of nature goes through this increasing process of integration, greater complexity, more diversity, more differences, and more connection, more integration. This is what you see, and this is essentially what differentiates between those four levels of reality, as Kabbalah identifies them: the still, the vegetative, the animate, and the human level. What's the difference between those levels?
By the way, also called the speaking level.
Or the speaking level, exactly. Yeah, let's put that speaking level aside for a second, and we'll get to it in a second. But if you look at all the still, vegetative, and animate development, those levels, what's the difference between a rock and a plant? What's the difference between a plant and a monkey, and so on? The difference is that there is greater differences in the elements that make them up, and yet there is a more advanced connection that ties them together. Back to the water for a second. So the hydrogen remains hydrogen, the oxygen remains oxygen. They don't change each other. But nature finds a way to interconnect them in a specific way we call H2O, that brings about something that scientists refer to as emergent qualities. There's an emergence of a new phenomenon called water that cannot be anticipated if you just look at the properties of hydrogen, or if you just look at the properties of oxygen. Same thing with whatever. Even in take sodium and take chlorine, and you get table salt. And all of nature is these compounds that are coming together, opposite and different and contrasting qualities, creating not just a connection. They create a new level of life ultimately.
Oh, so beautiful.
They
So
create a
beautiful.
new, yes, it's the magnificence of the natural program that we are
And
all
when
in. We're
when you
part of
say
that
this,
too.
and
Yeah.
now when I think of like the different political groups and the different kind of humans who are fighting
Mm-hmm.
each other, and to think that if they connected in the correct way, which is what we're constantly talking about, if we learn how to connect, we learn the process we're in, and we learn how to do this integration correctly, it's like hydrogen and oxygen become water, and that's just an element. Imagine if a person who's a combination of
Mm.
trillions of elements and another person who's a combination. I mean, you could power,
Right.
Einstein said E equals mc squared, right? It basically means energy. It's basically matter, moving matter. Uh, there's enough power in a cup of water to power the whole earth. Free energy. It's
Mm-hmm.
everywhere. It's infinite. That's just in water.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like getting giddy how exciting it is. So you
Yeah.
take a person who's 70% water plus all this electrical stuff happening and all these chemicals happening, and another person, and if they can combine, or even a group of people can combine, if hydrogen and oxygen can make water, imagine what people who learn
Yes.
how to integrate correctly, what could happen, what kind
And
of
will
world.
happen and must
Oh,
happen
so
because we are
beautiful.
part of nature too,
So
where
beautiful.
it has to happen. The only question is, how much time and suffering will it take for us to recognize this beautiful process of human emergence that we are in? What excites me is that this emergence is everywhere. It's every take, I don't know, like it's in the building blocks of nature, on the inanimate level, different rocks, different minerals, but it's also between organisms. The one of the best examples, I think, is all those social species. When you look at ants, and if you zoom in to what happens in an ant colony, you'll see, one ant is like the builder, and the other one is the protector, or whatever it is, and the other one is the gatherer. And they are pretty simple creatures. They are, if you take an individual ant, it performs very simple functions. It doesn't have a lot of calculations, complex calculations and computations like what your and my brain are doing every second. It's a very simple thing, but if you zoom out and you see an ant colony, that becomes the colony itself as a collective is an emergent phenomenon. It is something that you can never conclude from looking at, you can never anticipate from looking at each and every individual ant. Think of the swarms of fish that are working together, and all those other examples of nature. There's the termites that create these I don't know how they're called, these walls of not walls, like statues of um, mermites. Anyway, you I can't remember how it's called. Maybe Chris can find it. It's just beautiful to see that from when you zoom out of every interaction, when you zoom in, you might see battle, you see differences, you see contrast, you see conflict. When you zoom out, you see something whole that has qualities that can never be imagined if you look at what is that? Okay. Okay, still with ants. Yeah, this is still the crazy stuff that ants are doing. There we go. This is the termites. Yeah, the termites I was talking about. Termite tower or whatever it's called. Beautiful. Beautiful stuff. Anyway, we keep forgetting that we are not outside of nature. Human beings, as modern and intellectual and technologically inclined as the 21st century person is, we are part of the same natural program, the same natural laws, the same natural process. And so it's only natural that we too will go through this process of accumulating contrast, conflict, and differences that ultimately build a new level of emergence. And
Did you
so,
work on that?
yeah,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
go ahead.
Did you work on
I
that?
can,
That
yeah.
Did you work on that clip that Leo and Tony did about the nodes and hubs?
No, I know what you're talking about though. Yeah.
There's something very, very interesting that if you look at how the brain fire, I'm sure people have seen these images. If you look at like a galaxy and you look at the eyeball, it's like the same design.
Sure.
If you look at
Patterns.
how these
Patterns repeat
synapses
themselves.
fire in the brain, and you look at how cities develop,
Amazing.
it's like at the light, it's like the same.
Yeah.
So here, the difference between um, okay, what is this? The galaxy and brain cells. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
So probably everyone who's here with us knows all these unbelievable things. Anyway, so the difference is the mouth. It's the speaking because we're whatever we think we're doing, the cities we develop, the things we create are all following the same patterns. Anyway, we're still part of this process. The only difference is we just complain the whole way, you know?
Okay, so we need to come to terms with two things here that we put on the table. First of all, we need to put back cancel culture into this conversation and see this from this perspective of integration and emergence and this evolutionary process that we're in as human beings. And we also need to figure out what is the difference between us and the rest of nature going through the same process. Is there a difference? And does it have to do with our complaints about each other and our constant, the fact that we have mouths, as you called it? So, first of all, so let's go back to cancel culture for a second. So, the the issue is that we are very much focused on this sort of dynamic of there are heroes and there are villains and there are victims.
In Karl
And
Marx's worldview, it was like the abuser and the abused.
yeah, that's a known sociological prism that um, exactly, that there's always this kind of battle. And here's the thing, it's true that there is a battle. The problem is that when we are glued to the battle as human beings, we are missing, when we are detached from the bigger process, then we might end up wasting time and increasing suffering instead of aligning ourselves with where evolution wants to take us. This gets a little bit complicated.
Go
So,
for it.
yeah, yeah, I'm gonna try here. And by the way, I would encourage our friends here in the chat, whoever's watching and contributing in the chat. I see some interesting comments here and there when I take a glimpse. If you guys want us to clarify something specific or want to throw a question at us, you're welcome. Chris will help us help get these questions to us, and we can answer them. So the human being is very different. Why? Because the vegetative level is very different from the still level. It's a much more evolved. It's the quality. There's this beautiful explanation of the pyramid of nature that comes directly from the authentic sources of Kabbalah, explaining how the quality of desire that exists in one blade of grass is greater than all of the desire, which is the substance that runs the everything that we see through our five senses. The quality of desire in a blade of grass is greater, more advanced than what you will find in all of the planets, in all of the galaxies throughout the universe combined. This is something very difficult to grasp. These levels of nature, they are qualitative levels. The difference between plants and rocks is a difference of a new level of life. And the same with regards to the animal level as opposed to the vegetative level. Again, now you're talking about creatures that have freedom of movement, and they have their own digestive systems, and they have a nervous system, and they are very complex, and they have more individual latitude, whereas plants and vegetation all move in en masse. They move in groups. They so the and there's many
Hold on,
more
just to
differences,
slow, just
but
slow down
yeah,
because
yeah.
it's something huge you're opening up. So,
Mm-hmm.
when, for example, you could have a pride of lions, a group of lions, one can go that way, one can go that way, one can go that way. But if you have a field of sunflowers, they all, they don't have any freedom of movement, so they're still tied to the earth. So
Mm-hmm.
each kind of development from one level to the next, it's a totally qualitative development, even
Yes.
towards freedom, so to speak, of
Mm-hmm.
individuality
Mm-hmm.
and who he is and his kind of determination. The lions still are tied to their instinct,
Mm-hmm.
which they have no control over changing. But compared to a plant who can't even get out, he can't get up and move around, right? Like imagine if you were a plant, but you're the consciousness of a person. You're like, damn it, I just the sun and I just want to go over there. And and we put our mind inside there. So as they're developing materially, also there's that inner development, that emotional development that's moving qualitatively up each time.
Yes. Yeah. And when it gets to the
What you're
human,
saying is so rich. So I'm just asking you to slow it down a little bit because there's a lot in
and
there.
you should. Maybe I'm jumping here too fast, but um, I'm gonna jump to the human level for a second.
Okay.
So if I'm missing things on the way, just stop me and add them. The human level is infinitely more complex and advanced than the animate level. We are also going through, we ourselves are evolving. It's not just that the human level emerged and that's it, and it's a completely new level. No, we ourselves are also going through levels of evolution at a much more significant rate and quality and quantity than any of the other levels, right? Take rocks from billions of years and rocks from today. There isn't that much change. Look at animals and how they evolved. There's over hundreds of thousands of years. You'll see a little bit, you'll see some changes. Take humans from today and from 100 years ago, and we change so much
Mm-hmm.
at such an accelerating pace. We change not biologically so much, but we change consciously. That's the unique thing about human beings. Kabbalah refers to it as the speaking level of reality, and it's not by chance. There's a lot to do, it has a lot to do with our quality of communication and so on. But speaking in Kabbalah also means something a lot deeper than that, that we won't get into right now. But the human is this conscious creature in the natural program, where all the other levels, the rocks and the minerals and the plants and the monkeys and the bees and the Venus flytraps, whatever, they all go with the program, they emerge through a process of greater integration, they fulfill a certain function in nature, and all of that is coded into their instincts, programmed into each and every move they make. With us, it kind of goes through a process of digestion, conscious digestive. We have just like our body has a digestive system. Our mind and heart, let's say, are the quality that makes us human is that we have a conscious digestion process. So everything that we go through has to go through that box of our mind and our heart. We have to feel it within us, and we have to go through it, experience it, and evolve as a result of it. And so we need to feel that we are different from each other, and we need to form different groups and political parties and identities, all kinds of identities. Today, what do you see today in this modern world that we're in? You see more and more identities formed around all kinds of things, right? Including your where you grew up and your color and your background and your gender and all kinds of things. What is that? This is the evolutionary process of human consciousness taking place in front of our eyes. Just like in biological evolution, you see a process that biologists refer to as individuation. You see things becoming more diverse. You see beings becoming more separate and different, and then those differences find a way to integrate, creating the next level of life. Same thing with us. Only for us, it happens through that digestive system of the conscious heart and mind. So cancel culture is something that we are now going through as part of our evolution. We can't come to grips with our differences, and that simply plays out as people trying to cancel each other. Now, of course,
Salam has
yeah.
a great quote on this in the essence of Kabbalah. I forget which article, but he says, go ask a botanist. He's like talking about humanity, and he's talking about this process. There we go. The best. Chris.
Oh,
Go ask a
beautiful.
botanist
Oh, great.
Go ask a botanist how many phases the fruit undergoes from the time it becomes visible until it's
Slower,
completely
slower.
ripe.
This is a really good one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now,
So
go
this is
ask a
from Kabbalist
botanist.
Yehuda Ashlag.
So,
But
Chris, take it down for one sec.
yeah.
So what he's saying is that
Can you read again? I was totally
we're going to go back
disturbing.
to it. We're going to go back
Okay,
to it.
okay.
What he's saying is that when you look, if once you start to understand, he's teaching the method. He's explaining what's happening with humanity. He's explaining where humanity is going. And he says, if you understand where humanity is going, you can calm down. You don't have to get worried about all of the change. You don't have to go cancel everything. You just need to understand the process of ripening, okay, that humanity is going through. It's not enough to not know it, and just sit back and not worry about it. But once you start to understand what it is, then you don't have to worry, because now we start to ride with it and we become like the hydrogen and oxygen that will become the water. Chris, can you show it again now? So he says, go ask a botanist. Go ask, scroll up a little bit so we can see the next paragraph too. Go ask a botanist how many phases the fruit undergoes from the time it becomes visible until it is completely ripe.
Yeah.
Not only do preceding phases show no evidence of its sweet and fine looking end, but as if to anger, they show the opposite to the final outcome. That is, the sweeter the fruit is at its end, the more bitter and unsightly it is in the earlier phases of its development. And so it is with the animate and speaking types. The mind. Okay, so that's enough.
Yeah,
so
that
like
keep,
what we see if
keeps
you saw
going.
a
But
horse being born. We talked about it 100 times, and you see a baby child being born. Within an hour, the horse is up, he's walking, he's suckling, he doesn't fall off a cliff. And you put a baby boy, on the same field, and within an hour, the crows are pulling him apart and eating him. And, if you protect the baby boy, after 10 years, he can ride that horse, and do all kind of take over the world with that horse. But you have to understand the process of development. If you had to put your money on who's going to be the hero when the horse is born and when the baby's born, if you didn't understand nature, you'd put your money on the horse. If you understand nature, of course, you'd put your money on the kid.
Exactly.
The guy.
Yes. And if you apply this evolutionary logic to what we're going through right now, then even with respect to this cancel culture phenomenon, you can say, we need to fight. If you're trying to cancel someone, right? As part of this cancel culture mentality, like you don't appreciate someone's opinion, someone's views, and you just want to cancel it, then if you would be able to see that this difference in the other can somehow, not in its current form maybe, but your quality and that other quality that someone else has, that other worldview, that other perception, somehow, if they mature and evolve, they can reach a state where they complement each other and create this new mind, this new expanded, more complex, more advanced consciousness in reality. If you were able to see that, you'd be looking differently at this conflict already. And but again, I think that one of the big takeaways we need to take from this evolutionary logic that Barasulam gives us in this quote is this phenomenon itself of cancel culture is also part of our development. The only It needs to happen. It has to happen. The only question is how soon, and with the least amount of suffering, can we rise to a conscious level of development, to a conscious style of development. When people will suddenly learn, think about this idea, when people suddenly learn that we are all different, nature made us this way, we are naturally being pushed to become increasingly more different from each other because we are supposed to use our differences somehow to build something new, to build a new level of life. Just that knowledge, just that awareness, just that understanding alone will already put a completely different spin on cancel culture and everything that we're going through. You know what I mean? That will put us on a completely different plane of development. All right. What do you say? Do we have any, Chris? Do you see anything in the chat that someone wants us to answer or relate to? Um,
There's
I
something
see I
that's
see a bunch of things happening on the chat, but I can't keep track of everything. So
I
yeah.
was looking at Tony's song, one of Tony's songs. It's all one while you're speaking to see if
Mm.
it would be relevant. I think I distracted you. Sorry. Um, one of the kind of the most exciting part of this whole process we're in is uh, is the forces of nature, because to think that I need to solve it or you need to solve it or someone else needs to solve it, it's it's too big. Like, it's like when we look at what happened with COVID. It's like, how are we gonna get the whole world talking about the same thing? Boom, virus, everyone's talking about the same thing. Or how are we gonna deal with nature? Just nature does it. Once we hit that thing we started talking about at the beginning of the show, that full measure, this process of us going through this great transition and becoming that next degree of creature that feels eternal, that feels infinite fulfillment, that feels pleasantness and connection with all of reality, that communicates with all of reality as if communicating to your beloved, and feels all of reality communicating with you as if you are the beloved of all of reality. We don't have to do anything. Well, I don't want to say it like that, but it's not our work, so to speak. It's nature is doing it anyway. That is what nature is performing on us now. Our work is only to agree. Our work is only to get it. Like, okay, we don't have to be the oxygen and the hydrogen that fight with each other for a billion years. Like you were saying, our speaking degree is developing so fast, and we can go through changes so quickly in our hearts and our minds. We don't have to go, either we go through another incarnation. Oh, I don't hear you. I don't hear you.
Sorry. Yeah,
There we
I
go.
was just
Gotcha.
saying what you're describing is unique to us. Only the human is that level of creation, that level of nature that is capable of consciously participating in its own evolution. That conscious participation in our own process of development is what we can do, and the rocks, the plants, and the animals can't. That's
That's
the
what we're
big thing.
studying. That's what we're talking about. We don't have to go and save every tree and stop every oil spill. Nature can make a big tsunami and clean the ocean in a minute. You have those Brita, you have Brita in Israel.
Yeah,
It's a water filter.
yeah,
It's like a layer of charcoal and a layer of whatever else is in there. And you
yep,
just pour the
sure,
water in and it passes through the charcoal and then it comes out clean at the bottom.
yeah.
That's what sand and all the other stuff is. Nature just flips the ocean upside down. The water's clean. It'd probably be a big storm in order to make it happen. But the point is, it's not a problem. Nature makes a microbe, it eats the plastic. Not a problem.
Yeah,
Nature
that,
fixes
there
anything.
from this perspective, the truth is that there is no such thing as a problem. There's
Nothing.
only there is no problem. Nature doesn't have problems. Nature has evolutionary processes. Nature has states of evolving creatures. That's what's happening in nature. From our perspective, things may seem like a problem. And if we are too glued to this narrow sighted perception that we have, then we start fighting with each other more than we need to. I want to spend half a minute on this, because maybe people might be listening to us and they go, okay, so you guys are very utopian, we can all just get along. I think it's important for us to stress here that we're not saying that. We need to People are designed to feel individually different from each other. We have a more developed sense of separateness than any other animal, than any other level in nature. But we don't have to go to war with each other. We don't have to go to conflict with each other. We don't have to go to that point where we try to eradicate each other. It is sufficient for us to just sense, acknowledge the differences between us on a conscious level in order to advance to our next degree of greater connection. That all depends on how much we take the reins of development to our own hands, how much we start consciously participating in the process that we're going through. That's the true way to alleviate and avoid suffering in the world, to avoid conflicts, keep it on the conscious level, advance to the next stage instead of delving into and getting stuck in canceling each other, fighting with each other, going to war with each other, and as if getting stuck in the same evolutionary state.
When
The
when I
Yeah.
when I started my journey of saving the universe, when I was, save the planet, save the world, I don't know, 18 or whatever, I really started getting upset about what was
Mm.
going on in the world and all the injustice and everything. And I remember being so upset about having to go to sleep because it felt like such a waste of time. Like there's so much that needs to be done. And why were we made that we need to sleep? We should just be able to stay awake and just we would get so much more done. But it's ridiculous. I mean, now to think about it, like, oh, so if you had an extra 8 hours, then you would save the universe. No, I mean, it's just a joke. But uh, the process of nature is there's night and there's day. There's all, like, we just need to see what nature's doing and work with, agree with, move with these processes, but we can hasten everything. We don't have to go through incarnation after incarnation after incarnation of this protein growing and then rotting and then another one growing and then another one rotting. We can, like you said earlier, go through these processes very, very quickly. And Slightly Slanted Sleuth said, does Kabbalah think there's a creator and a God? Slightly Slanted, God is as big as you are. If you are on your first day, for example, on your first day of Kabbalah, and you can imagine some God, some creator that's that big, That's as big as God is to you, you know. And then after maybe 100 days, all of a sudden you, whoa, and that, and that. Okay, well, that's as big as God is to you. We're talking about something that has, I mean, measurement is only in this world. There's a perception beyond this world, like the Ari begins the tree of life. You know, before, what do you say, before the emanations were emanated, before the formation, before
Mm-hmm.
the creations were created, there was just a simple light that filled everything. That's I don't know what you call God or whatever. That's the creator, just means come and experience it. That's what in the language of the
Yeah,
Kabbalists, that's what the
literally,
word means.
that's what the word means in Hebrew. It's a
Yeah. So
it's a
as much
combination
as
of two
you,
words. Yeah.
as much as we're able to create a vessel of perception to perceive as much of that endless reality as you can, that is as big as the creator is to you.
Okay, you just inspired something I'd like to add here. The and I hope that will help to some of the questions here that we didn't get to in the chat. And that's the addition of perception. Perception of reality is a critical thing in in the authentic wisdom of Kabbalah. It's a very critical thing. We need to understand that we live in a shattered perception. That's where all our problems, right, imaginary problems, what we perceive to be as problems and conflicts, that's where it all comes from. Our perception of wholeness and oneness, the eternity and wholeness of nature as it is in truth, the oneness of nature, that perception is something that was shattered within us. We were deliberately pushed out of that program. Our consciousness, that is, was pushed out of that program of oneness. And so as we evolve in as human beings in this world, we identify ourselves as separate individual beings, each one with their own story. And the more humanity develops, you know, think about people thousands of years ago, hundreds of years ago, and into the 21st century, the more we develop, the more separate we feel from each other. Consciously, our perception of reality is getting more and more shattered. People thousands of years ago instinctively felt closer to each other, closer to nature. They lived like kin. They felt each other as a pack, as a group, just like groups of animals live together. They and managed to survive. The more we evolved, the more we became conscious of ourselves, the more we become creatures who experience a shattered perception. But that's not nature's plan. That's just the beginning of it. That's just the first stage. What's going to happen, and it's going to happen deterministically, whether we like it or not, if we understand it and like it and agree with it and begin to aspire to it, it's going to be a great, adventurous, beautiful, harmonious, joyful process instead of a process where we fight with each other and ruin the planet and cancel each other. But it's going to happen that we will once again build a perception of oneness, where we will identify that all those people that are different from me, all those ideas that are different from what I think, there is a part of me in everyone else in the world, and there is a part of everyone else in the world in me. That is the complete and absolute integration that we're going to come to. This integration or incorporation, as we sometimes call it in Kabbalah, is the peak of human evolution. And
Asaf,
at that point, go ahead.
Jonathan LaFontaine asks, would it have just been easier if we were all just one race?
Well, isn't that what we started from? I would say more than that. All of reality, not just people, all of reality was just one little tiny thing before it exploded 14 billion years ago
But
into.
now would it be
So
easier if we were all just one race?
so
Would we
why
be able to
why
achieve the
why
purpose of
didn't we
creation?
stay? So I'm saying not just one race. All of reality was one little thing. Why didn't it stay there?
Oh, why not go back before
Yeah,
race?
why even go back
Let's go
before
back to.
that? See, the whole problem is, do you remember how it was like to be in the womb of creation before the
I
Big
don't
Bang?
remember.
You don't
I don't
remember.
remember.
Me neither. None of us do because we had no consciousness. That's the whole thing. Who is it? Who is it that who asked? I can't remember.
It was Jonathan LaFontaine.
Jonathan, that's the whole point. That's the whole point. By growing out of the womb of nature, we can develop our own conscious experience of this wholeness of nature. So we have to go through separation first. We have to go through division and conflict and all of that. But that's in order for us to be independently conscious of the oneness of creation, to go back up, to climb back up. And that's where nature is pushing us. And that's the great transition that we're going through in the 21st century. In our time, we are starting this process of going back up. That's the uniqueness of our time. This is why it's exciting to be alive today. We got to wrap this
No,
soon,
Chris,
Seth.
that's not it.
There's a quote here that's coming up to
Baba Salam has an
before we
amazing
wrap
quote
up.
about he mentions the four races: black, white, red, and yellow, and he says that the purpose of creation depends on all four.
Yes, there we go. It's in item 23 of the mutual guarantee article from Kabbalist Yehuda
Okay.
Ashlag.
Anyway,
He says, you want to read it? I got it here.
go for it. Just read it. It is certain and unequivocal.
There we go. Go for it.
It is certain and unequivocal that the purpose of creation lies on the shoulders of the whole of the human race, black, white, yellow, without any essential difference. Actually, somewhere else
go.
it talks about red as well, meaning, and it's the four races, which is the four phases, which is, we can really open up what is this whole four pattern that we see everywhere.
Yeah.
Wow, what a cool show. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone, for being with us. I see a bunch of people added a lot of interesting comments here during our discussion. If we didn't get to your question or something you wanted us to relate to, please throw it in the comments below. We'd love to take it for the next show. We'll be here next time, and maybe we have a song to conclude with, Seth.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, way to go. Wait a second. We have even a list here. Thank you, Chris. We had people connected from India, Puerto Rico, Spain, Toronto, North Carolina, New York, Rome, Utah, Sweden, Tennessee, Colorado, South Africa, Wisconsin, Ohio, England, Quebec, Portugal, Norway. Wow.
Wow. Beautiful.
And you know what? We're all one at the end of the day. But we'll get there. We'll get there consciously.
Far above the words or anything we dream, woven in the song of every man.
Everyone, this is Tony Kosanek.
Out beyond the self, seen in every glance, we know and we can feel what we can't understand, that it's all one. The light and the darkness, the sweetness, the sorrow, it's all one. The good and the bad, what's past and tomorrow, and it's all one. What's near and what's far, revealed and concealed in us, all is one. Now we bow our heads, stand above living once again, bound by threads of love, of a single care. Here inside the friends, every heart in prayer. And it's all one, the light and the darkness, the sweetness, the sorrow. It's all one, the good and the bad, what's past and tomorrow. And it's all one, what's near and what's far, revealed and concealed in us, all is one. In the blink of an eye, it'll all disappear, and we'll turn from this world to a world without end, where each sin that we've sown will be shown in our favor. This is our life, this is our labor, till it's all one.